Welcome, Reanimated fans, to this week's episode. I am H.A. Conrad, coming to you from Brooklyn. On the West Coast is my intrepid co-host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Good morning. Hello.
And today we'll be talking about recapping, summarizing the next couple episodes of Black Summer Season 2, Episode 5 and 6, and that's White Horse and Currency. But ahead of that, we have a couple of little news items to chat with you about. Some really exciting news that we've been, tracking and waiting for. But the next installment of Kingdom, Ashen of the North, was released on yesterday, on July 23rd. And it looks great, as Kingdom often does. So there's been a couple of related articles. Number one, mainly an article about the special effects team and the main person who directs that team, just talking a little bit about the zombie makeup and the things that they have done. They worked on, and the main person is Wayne Hyo Kyun, and he basically runs a founder of a special effects company called Cell for short, but Technical Art Studio Cell. And it's basically if you're going to do special effects, it's South Korea's main shop. And this was just started in 2003. It's pretty cool. He's gotten to work, and it's nice because South Korea's had obviously so many cool film projects going on. So he was on Train to Busan, Peninsula. He also did work with Parasite. So it isn't all just sort of the zombie horror special effects. Also, obviously, he has worked on Kingdom and the new installment. And so it's kind of interesting just to chat. He talks a little bit about his thought process and things that work and things that don't. Like, I guess in some cases they were trying to make kind of frozen zombies, and he said they just looked like comical, so they had to take that out. Like they were trying to do sort of like a frostbite thing. Just interesting to hear his process. And then beyond the horror effects, just sort of things that you don't necessarily pick up. So some of the effects they did for Parasite was just like to do with like fruit and stuff like that. One of the funnier things or cooler things that they did was basically there was a film and they had to do animatronic horses, which was a pretty big deal, and that was like in 2008. And it's just kind of definitely take a read through the article, or there's like a video that goes through it. So I don't know, did you happen to go through it all, Stuart?
I watched the beginning of it, and I rather enjoyed their intro where they were putting makeup on the actor, and then they offer her a bottle of water, and it's like, oh yeah, she looks like a zombie, but then they're having a little bit of back and forth. I thought it was cute, but yeah, the dude has a crazy resume, and Ashen of the North is a movie, not a miniseries, which I kind of thought it was going to be a series.
Yeah, I did too. I admit I was a little surprised. It felt like it was going to be a series, but I guess not. But I'm definitely excited to watch it. I'm sort of saving it for a little bit, for after Black Summer. One of the interesting things that Huang said in this article was that it used to be his dream to work in Hollywood, and he was kind of working to do that. But now, just because of so many of the projects that are in South Korea, he's basically like, I'm fine here. And it's a premiere shop that he set up, and they're the go-to for all of these projects, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, they're basically like the Weta workshop of South Korea, which
Right.
Weta is, amazing in its own right. People travel to them. He can have the same sort of cachet where he is.
Right. So I think that's, and the projects that he's worked on are now looked at globally, and they are the go-to in this area. So it's sort of like, I like the idea that this was what he was striving for, and now it's like he's just basically established himself as this premier special effects team. So I think that's pretty cool.
It's pretty significant though too that this one dude, this one shop is responsible for so many of the zombie movies that we've looked at out of Korea. Like hashtag alive is one of theirs too, which we talked about in the last 12 months or so. And so that's like a through line for all of those zombie projects that we've watched out of Korea is his handiwork.
Well, I mean, think about just sort of the talent that must be there. And if they are the premier shop, they can attract all that talent, and they can basically say, oh, you don't have to go to Hollywood, and you can stay here and you can work on all these incredible projects. And because they started out so early, they are the name. So I think that's honestly pretty incredible and awesome. So
Yeah, it's cool.
looking forward to seeing the work in Ashen when we watch it. I definitely enjoyed it in the other Kingdom series. So and next up, there is and then there's sort of more related to the Ashen in the North. Another Forbes article, are people at Forbes like zombies? And just talking a little bit about the human element of Ashen in the North and the philosophy and the sort of messaging in that. I don't want to get too much into that, so forgive me, Stuart, but I don't want to spoil myself too much.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably more the same as we saw in Kingdom, so I
I
don't
mean,
want to.
the head or like the head for this article is humans are more evil than the zombies in Kingdom Action of the North.
Right,
I'm
right.
like, oh yeah,
You
you don't
think?
say, because
Yeah,
it's. Have you seen a zombie movie anytime?
right. Lastly, I never read. I read maybe a couple of episodes or a couple of of this series, the Marvel Zombies that Kirkman started out. And this is the last article is just about why the what if Marvel series isn't going to give us the real zombies, and basically the gist of it is that it was bought by Disney and they're afraid of being too controversial. I will say the Kirkman Marvel zombie series is pretty gory and gross. It's kind of interesting because it's Kirkman. But I don't know. I just think I'm not shocked that Disney doesn't have the appetite to put some of those visuals on screen. So I don't know that there's much to that article that's really a surprise.
I don't know that it
But
was Kirkman who wrote the real Marvel zombies. It was Mark Millar, right? But they're comparing it to Kirkman's zombies. I thought
oh, did
no.
he did he
Oh, he
do
did. Oh
five
no,
issues?
it does say he wrote 5-issue Marvel zombie
Right.
series.
So
Okay.
he basically started it out and then they kind of took it. But I would I can't say that I read the whole series. I did read a couple of the Kirkman like the Kirkman storylines, and it's exactly what you would hope it would be. So just saying, it's kind of worth it.
This is all about like, what if is going to fall short of the expectations of people who are really into this element of Marvel.
Right.
I I don't have any expectations. I think whatever they are willing to show us in terms of zombie Marvel characters, I'll be pretty excited to see. So
Right. I mean, but as I said, Disney bought it. You're not going to get you're not going to get something insanely like super dark and gory. But
you would think, yeah.
I mean, but anyway, I think without further ado, we should start talking about the next two episodes. And again, this series is really not disappointing me. I'm really enjoying watching it in this way and trying not to binge too much. I will admit it's continuing my same instinct, which is that immediately after the episode that I'm watching, I want to move on to the next one. I have thus far been very strong with my willpower. So I've
That's
not.
that's laudable. Nice work.
This
I
next
would
one
say that
was
these two really are a departure from
yes.
the exhausting, like, first tension and then insane mayhem of the last two episodes we watched. With White Horse, I was wondering where Spears was, and it's weird that they're calling him Spears, but then his
Mhm.
other identity is also really comes into play in this episode. But
Right.
like, Spears is how he is known in like the subtitles and in like the recaps, and this that is his identity on this show, and that's kind of interesting since it's just the name of a soldier he murdered in season one, right?
Right, right. It's not his actual name. And also a departure in these two episodes is the narrative. So we're not seeing the sort of jumping around a timeline in these.
Yeah.
So other than talking about past things. And so this
Yeah,
first
a
episode,
lot of
White,
talking, man. Like, talk about your departures. This is
right?
episode 5. Whitehorse is the most dialogue I've ever,
Mm-hmm.
I think, has happened in this series.
Yep, absolutely. And basically, this is continuing the storyline of Spears. We saw what was happening to him. He is just as a reminder, he's shot and he's definitely pretty seriously injured and just trying to survive. And he's noted that there's this weird dude following him, which is in this particular world concerning. And finally confronts, or the guy catches up with him and confronts him. And I have noted that the interactions between humans on this show are very strange at this point, which you would expect if people are in like total survival mode, don't have trust. there is a level of strangeness about their interactions. And I will admit, given the sort of COVID world that we've been living in, I feel like I can commiserate a little bit with the weird interactions.
Well, I would say the currency episode really underlines all that weirdness. This one is weird too, but yeah, there's just like a desperation in Spears, since he is like basically close to death. But when we run into him, he looks like garbage. And the dude who meets him, Braithwaite, who very quickly introduces himself, gives him water right away. But it does still take a while on screen of like persuasion and talking Spears down to make him be like, all right, we're going to be okay. We will work together a little bit. We'll have like a tentative sort of alliance at the beginning of this episode.
Right.
But
well, although I will say some of this is because Spears is injured and he can't really get rid of Braithwaite.
But he can't really either let on that he's injured, right? Like there's a real chess game going on here of like, I need your help. I cannot ask for your help. I want you to go away because I think you're just going to try and murder me. But also, and Braithwaite says it, if you die, you're going to turn into a zombie and eat me. And so like there's all of these layers of this like relationship.
It is a very interesting tension. And the other part is like he claims to know him, and it's like that weird thing where it's like, oh yeah, I know you. And there's this level of concern. Like, I mean, Spears is just like, this guy is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And maybe, and as we find out later, there is maybe he did recognize him.
Braithwaite knew who he was the entire time. I'm fairly certain.
I think maybe he did. Yes.
Why would he have followed him otherwise? Right. I mean,
yeah.
And Braithwaite also is played by this actor named Bashir Sylvan, who's a Haitian American, I think, who's not been in anything that I've really seen much of. He was in Chicago PD and a couple of other things. I think he is fantastic in this episode.
Amazing. Yep, definitely.
And the guy playing Spears, I forget his name, but he's like, there's a lot of acting going on in this episode. I mean, we talk about how little dialogue and how much they show by doing, I guess, on this show. In this one, they have to emote. They have to. They're telling all these stories, and there's so much going into this that I feel like this is a part of the cast or an element of the cast that we haven't really gotten to experience. Jamie King does a lot of this too, because she's fairly verbal, but it's a lot of mama bear. But what the dude, what's his name?
Julius James.
Julius James is his character name, but his Justin Chu Carey.
Chu Carey, right?
He is really doing a lot of work here, and I thought it was really fun to watch.
And I think, the other part of this element that I think is so interesting that we haven't seen, as this is definitely a specific storyline that they're picking up from the last season, which is the idea that even the things that you did in the world before, do they matter? Does it matter who you are? Does it matter that he's not Spears? All those kinds of things. And he's never actually been, he hasn't really been confronted with any of this until now.
I mean, he was in the first season too, though. Like, people kept trying to arrest him, right?
Right. But like, he thought, I would imagine that it seemed pretty safe that he was away from all of that at this point. And some random dude in the woods knows him. So that's kind of got to be messed up. But
what do you think? Do you think that it's like what Rose did in the past? Nobody knows, nobody cares. Doesn't really matter, right? She was probably just a housewife, or who knows. But this guy, he was actually a hitman.
No, he was a hitman for his older brother,
which is a skill set that has come in handy, and he's had to use a lot in the time after.
And you could argue that he's better equipped to survive this world for that exact reason.
Mm-hmm.
And he also has this level of distrust, which makes sense, and definitely a pretty heavily developed set of survivor instincts.
But then we go back to when he met Rose. He saved her life unprompted.
Right.
I mean, there was a zombie in that alley or wherever she was running from. Was it her husband?
Yeah.
Maybe. And he put that one down, maybe out of self-preservation on some level, because it could have turned around and gone after him. But he he did something. He did a good deed in that
He
in that
did,
scene.
and I mean, I think he's a complex character for
Yeah,
that reason.
right.
And even in how they talk about Big James, his brother, Braithwaite is definitely pretty bitter about the things that had happened. And the way that they play this out, though, I think is quite well done
Oh, they
in this
teased this out
episode.
right till the end. Yeah.
Yep. And they do a great job both with just these little hints. And I mean, Braithwaite is definitely playing a bit of cat and mouse
Mm-hmm.
with Spears, and just sort of lets these weird little hints and comments go through. He has this little game that he's been playing, like, oh, you look like a Harry, or you look like a this.
A Daryl. Yeah.
And he's just messing with him the entire time. And then there are definitely these like weird moments where they are brothers in arms because they're trying to survive together. But then there's moments where it's like they totally distrust each other, and they kind of play this tension off of each other the entire episode. Again, I can't say enough about the writing and the editing and the storytelling in this. And here, like, you could say, oh well, they're not writing dialogue because they're not great writers, or they're not using dialogue for this. Well, in this
Yeah.
episode they did.
They proved that point here for sure.
And it really is incredibly well done. And they even have this incident where they're going through the woods, and there's this kind of it's definitely an homage to Blair Witch. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, but I mean, the dude even says, like, I've seen that movie. Like, this looks like
Yeah,
white people shit. I've seen that movie. And you're like, yep,
right.
okay.
I don't want anything to do with that. And they end up in the weird little culty house, which is super creepy and strange.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it could have been. It could have been worse, but
Yes,
it's
it could have
pretty
been.
bad.
At least they were all out except for the one dude. But in any case, like they've got these moments where they both seem very much aligned, and other moments where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna kill you. And it really goes back and forth.
That fight, I mean, the fist fight that they have by the campfire when really Braithwaite's just trying to check the wound, but still Spears has all his walls up, like, no, you cannot check my wound because that will be me being vulnerable, and I can't be vulnerable, right? And then they have this fight where I don't know if they both get knocked out.
I don't know, but
or if they're both so drunk that they just pass out after they finish their fight, and then it's raining.
Have that going on. I actually thought that there was going to be more of an element, and how Braithwaite eventually pretends that he realizes who Spears is about the nut allergy. And I thought there was going to be a thing where Braithwaite's like drinking the alcohol and somehow gives some of the nut, residuals from whatever he's eating onto the bottle. And I thought that maybe Spears was going to have a reaction, but he does not. That's not what happens. Instead, they just roll around and fight. And I mean, the other part of this that is like, it's just extraordinarily well crafted, because aside from the tension between them, which is significant, there is also the tension about all the zombies running around.
There's a lot of zombies in these woods, it turns out.
And it is very, very Blair Witch in how they have them running with the flashlights, and you can't see a lot. And there's like a threat out there. Yeah. And you see these like sort of, they let you see what they want you to see. And it's even more stressful for that reason, because you can't see the zombies running after them. Like there's this whole sequence of them running through the woods.
It's great Foley work here, right? There's a lot of great yelling out in the woods somewhere that you can't see, like you say, very Blair Witch. And our perspective is tied to Braithwaite and Spears. What is kind of a little bit maybe disappointing to me, or maybe it's just like evolution because they've gotten that good, is they managed to kill 5 zombies in the dark with they have guns, but they lose both. I think they lose both their guns or all their ammo by the time they get to the creepy house. But they managed to kill 5 of these zombies in the dark, which is something that we haven't seen people being able to do in the light of day very well.
And it did occur to me that even especially on the road, and especially the way that this whole episode played out, it did occur to me that maybe Braithwaite is a figment of Spears' imagination, that maybe he is so delirious that he is playing this stuff out in his head.
Oh my.
And so that was what I was thinking maybe happening during this, just because it was something so specific. And what are the odds that this person that you supposedly killed and should have been dead came back to life and is basically taunting you with some of the sins of your past?
That's a very possible outcome.
And so that's what I really thought it was, even up until the very end, especially with the symbolism of the horse, and all that. Like, to me, this felt like maybe it was just,
I mean, it's a white horse with skulls tied to the saddle,
right? Like, it just felt like that's where we were going. And I don't know that that's not
It might still be.
It
I
might still
think
be the
you
case.
might be onto something there, psychologist AJ Conrad.
Um, so that was sort of my take on the episode, just because it could easily be, even when you're hearing the things that Spears is saying, it could easily be a one-sided conversation in your own head, or things that he's trying to work through. So I don't know. So we shall see.
We
But
shall.
anyway, a really cool episode.
It ends a little bit like there is a bit of a quiet ending here where he does like have the gun up to Braithwaite's head, like and I'm not really sure what his motivation would have been there. That so he was asked to kill this guy by his brother, I assume, and put 2 bullets in him, and then the job wasn't finished. But why would he feel any need to finish the job now, other than like the sense that maybe Braithwaite is playing some kind of long game?
I think that he, even in the comment that Braithwaite said, I think he was still worried that Braithwaite might put him down, and that there's still a vengeance thing. There's a lot of talk between them about vengeance and what happened before and that kind of thing.
Bygones.
And then there is the other part that Braithwaite might have been injured by one of the zombies, because he did have something going on with his face. So there was maybe that sense too, but
he did. Yeah, he had a zombie on him in the dark in the woods, so potentially. But yeah, so I'm kind of interested to see more of their story as an end. Like, is Spears ever gonna, are Spears' son and Rose ever gonna get reunited? They're definitely all off doing their own things right now, and that's the next episode. Kind of shows us what Son and Rose are up to, and Mance, apparently, who is now a character that we've definitely seen in almost every episode, haven't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Should we talk about the next one? Are you ready to move on?
Let's hop into it. So the next episode is Currency. And there's a few different storylines going on here, two of which involve the crates dropped by the plane. And the crates all seem to have different levels of supplies.
And on this point, the crates, I asked the question at the end of our last podcast, after the house fight, what did Nasri get out of that assault on the house? He lost all of his dudes.
Yep.
But what I guess he thinks he's gotten was eyes on one of the crates that fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
Maybe that was so I'm still a little fuzzy on what is driving him. If it's just base survival, why he thinks Son is a valuable prisoner. I still have a lot of questions even after this episode.
Right. And both sets of people, like, so there's like survivors from Sophie's group out there. There's some of the people, like Sam from Nasri's group is there.
Yeah.
And basically they find one crate, and Sam basically tells them, well, we can take it all, but we just have to bring it up this hill, which, by the way, I think is a weird idea, because that crate is so flippin' heavy.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know if that makes sense, because I think you could probably split a lot of that stuff between all of you. Okay, so that's an aside.
Yeah, they could have cut up the parachute into like 3 haversacks or something.
Stuff, right?
Yeah, and carried stuff individually.
Because those crates are ridiculously heavy. So I thought this was very strange, but okay, that's what they're going to do. And they come up with this whole teamwork plan that goes afoul, runs afoul pretty quickly.
But the dynamics, the social dynamics, back to what you were saying about how weird it is the way people talk to one another. This group, the one that you're describing, where Sam has like got these guys kind of at gunpoint, but then eventually they're all kind of working together, because it's him versus 4 of the ruffians.
Right.
They have a weird dynamic even before he shows up. They're like yelling at the guy with the pigtails, like, stop complaining, eat some snow. I don't want to hear you complaining.
They're just strange with each other.
They're not nice to one another, because I guess that's the show is telling us that, like, social niceties are done. Everybody is cruel. Everybody is looking for power and survival from one minute to the next.
Right. And so, but this crate has a lot of food in it, and medical supplies and things like that.
This is definitely the better crate.
Yes. And then you've got Nazari, Sophie, and Son, and one of his dudes. I don't know who the guy's name is. And they find another.
Yeah, he's not named, but he's a guy who's had a lot of lines. He was like his lieutenant in the house fight.
Definitely running point in terms of like being ahead and stuff like that. And the other, and then so it's basically these 2 different stories, and then we've got Rose, Anna, and then the man that had been hiding upstairs, who was supposed to show them to the airport. And so basically all three storylines are about weird group dynamics and people that just the way things are and the lack of trust. And sort of, and not sort of, but just completely forgetting, like, there is the outside threat of the zombies, but the main threat is each other at this point. And we've seen this. I mean, we saw it in the 2 episodes prior with the house episode. Like, it's rare enough to have this many survivors and they're all looking for resources, but in this case it just the other humans become a bigger threat, and they're so unpredictable and their mental states are really unpredictable.
Yeah.
And I think that with the group, with Sam and the one that are trying to haul the crate, like, they get to this point and they're all just like yelling at each other. There's an enormous amount of tension, and eventually it's every person for themselves. And there's just like a lot of yelling and tension that seems ridiculous.
There
And
isn't even like there isn't like a bad intent in this one.
no,
It's the two women don't have the upper body strength to do the job that they've been given, and
right.
and I think Mance sees it coming, and then that's why he cuts the rope, which leads though to one of his buddies question mark getting killed, and Sam, and they lose the crate. And then like he looks up and sees the two women running away. Like they've given, I mean, they know that somebody's going to be, probably they expect somebody's either going to be dead or Sam's down there with a rifle and he's going to shoot them. So I think maybe that's
They're
the right
just
choice.
doing what they gotta do,
But they've
right?
cut bait. Like they get out of that with nothing potentially. I mean, maybe in a future episode we'll see them go back down and recover some of, but that's so much supplies that they have just said.
Yeah, but the other thing that really was troubling me and stressing me out, and maybe this was deliberate, is like how much they're yelling at each other and how much noise they're making.
Oh, that too. Huge amount of noise.
And especially if it's wintertime and the air is like that and you're in like an outdoor place like that, noise carries really far. And so if you have this outside threat of zombies running around and they're super keen on hearing, which they seem to be, they just kind of come to whatever noise or louder noise happens. This seemed to be just like a bad survival. Again, cut the parachute up into make little knapsacks of stuff. It was driving me crazy. I'm like, why are you carrying this stupid crate? And then of course it all ends in tears and the thing falls down, and it was pretty, Sam is injured horribly and they had to show the special effects. Like whoever did the effects on this did a very good job.
Yeah.
And then we see almost his ending, but it's pretty clear that he's going to get taken out by Pigtail Guy.
It looks 100. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he had a compound fracture, but there was a lot of blood.
Yeah, there's a compound. The bone is out. It was pretty gory. And then of course, helpfully all the stuff in the crate, it's like medical stuff and food, and it's like all this stuff that is now useless. So it's definitely rubbing the faces, the audience face in this, which I thought was like, oh, you're mean.
Yeah. Super dumb. I mean, it was Sam's idea to move the crate, right? And he's like, look, you can stuff your pockets and survive on those MREs for like 1 or 2 days, which I think you could probably stretch them out. But still, yeah, it's a short-term solution. Or we can get all this stuff out of this valley and then figure out a way to use it all or something. And that was his pitch, which they were like, okay, let's do it. But yeah, I don't know that this crate would still only like support a 5 people or 5 people for a couple weeks.
Much. Yeah, it's not that much. And then the other group that we're following is Naziri, Sophie, Sun's still being like, and the other dude. And Sun is still with her handcuffs. She like, even having her around like this is somewhat of a liability. I still didn't understand this.
She's like slow. Naziri's having to pull her. I mean, having to pull a 4-year-old girl when you're holding her hand up a hill is already kind of annoying. Or at least like it's very slow. Having to pull a full-grown woman who's exhausted and kind of out of hope and just isn't walking as fast as you, I can imagine that this is an expense, an energy, an effort. I don't understand why they feel like it's worth it.
Yeah, and they so they found the other crate at the same time of another group, and there's this whole the normal standoff. But this crate it seems to only have weapons, or at least that's the only thing I saw. Did you notice there was anything else in there?
All I saw was guns and ammo. I think that's all they showed us.
So there was that. And
What are
there's
these people in the airplane dropping guns and ammo
I
for?
don't
What is this
know.
like a weird episode of The Purge now? I don't what's
Yeah, I
happening.
don't know. So in any case, these two groups are against each other. Nazari's basically like, you guys can take my scraps. There's a bit of a standoff, and then we have the zombies reign in, and the groups kind of take advantage of each other's vulnerabilities. There's just like a lot of scrabbling back and forth. And they take out the point guy. So it's just
Yeah.
Naziri, Sophie, and handcuffed Sun. And then Sun, as always, tries to play peacemaker here. And with the tension of the group and with what we've seen, I don't fully believe that they wouldn't have just shot her, or that Naziri wouldn't have. So I thought this was kind of odd, but the basic thing I think they're trying to get across here is that, hey, we're all humans. We should just be friends and we can all take this stuff. I guess that semi makes sense. And eventually she just gives the other dude a bag and tells him to go off, and Naziri cuts her handcuffs and everything off. But she's super injured from the handcuffs. And then this group just kind of continues. Sophie and Naziri and Sun are just gonna like walk on.
Wander off with more guns. Yeah.
So like I'm not sure what, again, just don't really know that this totally makes sense. So this is the only part, not only, but the part of the storytelling that I'm kind of like, I'm not sure about this, is this Sun thing, which again continues to make me think, is there something that we're missing
There must
about
be.
this?
Either there's something that like a major plot point that we don't understand, or then that's is like the Achilles heel of this episode of this season,
Yeah, maybe.
because
Um,
it's not clear yet.
And then lastly, in terms of dysfunctional relationships, we've got Rose, Anna, and upstairs guy. I know he has a name because they put it on screen, but I just don't remember what it
Have
is.
they?
Apologies. What?
Have they put it on screen?
I don't know. But anyway, it's upstairs guy is supposedly leading them to the airstrip. It is very cold, and the light is starting to fade. He There's like, again, that super weird dynamic. Can you trust this person? Can you trust the story? He seems relatively harmless, but he also seems a little crazy. So can you trust, is he a reliable narrative? Is he a reliable person to trust and show you the airstrip, or is he lying for survival's sake? Rose really doesn't trust anybody. So
This is a real study of Rose and Anna, and Anna is often just she's very silent. She doesn't talk a lot, right? But she's watching her mom a lot, and you get a lot of shots of her. It's kind of like not even a reaction shot. It's just her kind of like giving a flat stare at Rose from behind or something. Like after they took down Sunny and Mom 2 episodes ago, Rose was the one like hyperventilating, breathing, drinking whiskey, and Anna was just kind of looking at her, kind of like, nope, not breathing very hard, just kind of like taking it in, but studying her mom. And there's more of that going on here because Rose is kind of losing her temper. She's kind of going momish on this, and I don't mean like that she's a mother, but like Sunny's mom. She's coming up with conspiracy theories about this guy, and oh,
yep.
you're leading us out here for all of us to die together. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense,
I
Rose.
mean,
Come on.
admittedly, the guy is doing some weird stuff and basically admits that he's taking them not to the airstrip, but to
He's
this
being too
retreat.
secretive.
He's
Yeah.
being secretive. So you can see from Rose's point of view where the end point could be that he's leading them into a trap, that he's just trying to survive. And she is very ready to cut her losses. There's also an interesting thing where at any point when he addresses Anna, she's like, no, you don't talk to my daughter. Like that's very much, and it's a little bit of what we were seeing with Freddie, her protective nature kicking in, which you
Yeah.
can understand in this world why
It
that
just feels like it's going a
might
little
happen.
overboard in this episode.
Yeah.
And that Rose
Um,
and that Anna is also a little bit like, Mom, I think you're losing it. I thought
yeah.
there was a chance that Anna was actually going to kill Rose.
I did too, actually. And that was kind of maybe there. But then ultimately the crisis is semi-averted because Anna is able to convince Rose to just let off and lets the guy. I mean, that's the other thing. Do you follow this guy? He seems to be very lost. He's like, oh, I know it's here somewhere, like,
They're
and
completely lost. And he
they're
says he has an
totally
idea. And he does admit, like, oh, it's a ski lodge is what I'm looking for eventually.
right. But
But what they find at the very end of this episode does not look like a ski lodge to me. It's like a lakeside
It looks like
house.
Hotel Overlook is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like that's
Yeah.
exactly the vibe I was getting.
It's pretty big. It's a pretty big place. He says it's got power and all the supplies and everything. I don't know. We'll see. We don't get inside. I mean, and we should also mention Braithwaite has said to Spears that he has a cabin that he
on the
knows
lake.
how to get to. Oh,
On the
wait.
lake.
He does
So
say that there's a
same.
lake. It can't be the same place. That thing is huge.
Yeah, that isn't a cabin or
That's a
even a
mansion.
it's like no, it's not even that. It looks like a whole resort.
Yeah,
At
it's
least
multiple
from my point of view.
buildings. But
And I thought it
we'll
was
see.
again so we see the last scene of them like sort of, and it's very snowy. It's trying to get dark. It's definitely freezing, and upstairs guy is making a lot of noise, going like running towards it, and I'm just like, I don't know. I'd probably be a little cautious because the last time y'all approached a place like this could be hiding zombies, and he's like, nobody knows about it. Well, it's huge. Somebody knows about that thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just thought it was like I probably would have been approaching that thing with a little more caution than they seem to be. So I don't know. So we shall see. And again, I desperately wanted to push play on the next episode, but I did not, even though it was very difficult.
Well, there's
So-
two more to go. And so we'll find out more. Well, with the next, wait, where are we? The next two episodes are the lodge and then the plane, and that'll take us to the end of the season. So that sounds about right, considering the the major plot that we know about is they're sleeping probably in this lodge, and then they're going to try and find that plane. I think we have a sense of where this is going, but not at all at the same time. We will, I assume, get some sort of collision of Sun, Spears, and Rose, and I really look forward to how that's going to go, and if Rose is going to kill more of the people that she cares about.
Yep. So we shall see. Anyway, anything else to add?
I think that's about it for these ones. They were good. I mean, yeah, the currency episode is kind of bleak. Sun, of course, manages somehow to penetrate through all of that negativity. And when the bearded guy who shot the unnamed operator leaves, he's like, good luck to you. And good luck to you too, to Nasri. Let's get out of here. Like, I don't know. He went from being a guy who murdered someone to then saying like, good luck and see ya, neighbor. I don't know. Like, it wasn't quite a complete 180, but she somehow made this huge breakthrough. And I like that the show is working on that storyline or that thread, because otherwise, it will be too one note. And so I think it's really important that you do have somebody who's out there trying to change the way things are going.
Right.
Whether it works in the long run, we'll see.
We shall see. But in any case, I'm already mourning the end of this, so we'll see what happens. But definitely, if you have not yet watched Black Summer season 2 start, it is really fantastically well done. I have been thoroughly enjoying it, and I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah.
And if you have any thoughts on it or on the thoughts on the episode up until this point, feel free to shoot us an email, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. Reanimated PCast on the Twitters, or reanimatedpodcast.com is the main site, and you can leave it in the notes there. Until next time, ciao, and thanks for listening.
Alrighty, bye now.